Hello everyone, welcome back to the gaming classroom, and today we're going to be talking about variables in a study and some terminology we need to cover before we start discussing some examples are what variables we have. So there are four different possible variables that we're going to be discussing in this video, the first of which is the independent, which are the variables the researcher can manipulate to reach the outcome, which in a sense they're like a cause, but we don't use the term cause. It's too casual. And the dependent variables are the variables that result in the manipulation of the independent variables, the outcome. And they're the effect. But again, cause and effect relation is a bit casual, so we tend to refer to them as the independent variables and dependent variables. Independent is what you can change, and dependent is the outcome of whatever you have changed. Now, there are extraneous variables as well, which are outside factors that could affect the results of a study. For example, if you're studying how long it takes to get from the sandwich shop down the street from your place of business, how long it takes to get from your place of business to the sandwich shop, an extraneous variable could be a stop sign. You will have to wait to be able to cross the street. Sometimes when you get there, it's safe to cross the street. Other times you'll have to wait until all the cars have come to a stop and you can cross the street. But those are possibilities. Confounding variables are extraneous variables that did affect the results of a study. So if your walk from your place of business to the sandwich shop was impeded by an extraneous variable, that extraneous variable has now become a confounding variable because it affected the outcome of the study, the outcome of how long it takes you to make that walk. Could have made it longer or shorter. So first example we'll discuss is a group of children are gathered and get to choose a candy of their choice. The options are Snickers or Hershey's. When the children are done eating, a count is done to see which candy was consumed more, the Snickers or the Hershey's. What are the independent and dependent variables? Go ahead and pause the video and take a guess. Okay, so I hope you took your guess on the independent and dependent variables. If you guess that the fact that children have a choice, that is the independent variable, and the dependent variable is the amount of candy consumed. So if half of the children chose Hershey's and the other half chose Snickers, well, that is the outcome of the candy consumed. So 50% of the kids consumed Hershey's, 50% consumed Snickers. But how many were left over? Were there more Hershey's left over, more Snickers? That is your dependent. When you go to count the amount of candy consumed, you will determine which one was more popular, Snickers or Hershey's. And the result? X is more popular amongst these children. Now, it's not the same with every children, but the children in this specific study, one of those candies is more popular. So for our second example, a study is done to determine if music impacts student performance. Students are given a mock exam and assigned a specific genre of music to listen to during the exam. What are the independent and dependent variables present? Go ahead and pause the video and take your guess. Okay, so in this specific example, oh, I apologize for that. I completely forgot I added that extra question. Okay, pause again and consider the extraneous variables. Okay, so for the independent and dependent variables present, the independent is the genre of music, as the researcher gets to determine which student listens to which genre of music and what genre will be played. They may be playing pop, they may be playing rock and roll, heavy metal, classical. You really don't know what genre it is, but you, as the researcher or the researcher of this study, gets to choose the genre of music. And the dependent variable are the results of the exam. Did music increase performance, decrease performance, or did it not really make a difference? Now, possible extraneous variables include learning disabilities, materials on the exam, anxiety, dislike of the music assigned. So, for example, if a student is dyslexic, music might not make a difference. They could still perform pretty poorly, or they could perform a little bit better than normal. But you never really know. You expect students with learning disabilities to perhaps perform a little bit less, especially if they have not had extra tutoring. But that is just for in this study. So this is just a mock example. I'm not saying that's true for students with learning disabilities, but a learning disability could affect this study. Materials on the exam, if the exam has a lot of math and a student is not very versed in math, that could affect the results. If a student has testing anxiety, or if the music they're listening to is music they simply do not like, those could all be extraneous variables. And some common mistakes that are made are reversing the idea of the independent and dependent variables. So you probably heard the phrase, it depends on the circumstance, it depends on this, depends on that. Makes it seem to some people like the dependent variable is the one manipulated, when in actuality the independent is the one we are manipulating. Remember, the independent is what we change. The dependent we cannot touch. The dependent is the outcome of the change we made to the independent variable. We have no control over the dependent. We have control over the independent. And extraneous variables are possible while confounding variables are confirmed, as I like to put it. So extraneous are variables you want to take into consideration, but did they affect the study? If they did affect it, they have become confounding because they've made an impact. They could have made things seem worse or better. They could have correlated with your hypothesis. They could have affected the way your hypothesis was created. So, in determining whether you should reject or fail to reject your hypothesis, these variables need to be taken into consideration, and do know that extraneous variables can indeed become confounding variables. So I hope this short video helped you out there. It might be a bit confusing the way I described it, but if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.